Welcome to the Rock Newman Show.
It's the Rock Newman Show.
And now, the Rock Newman Show.
Welcome back. Today is Saturday, August the 3rd, 2013. This is the Rock Newman Show. We're broadcasting live from the stage of the Langston Hughes Room at Busboys and Poets. I certainly welcome those of you who are just tuning in. Our guest in this segment is Fox News political analyst, JUAN Williams. JUAN Williams has been a fixture, a media fixture in the Washington, D.C. area for quite some time. He has built quite a reputation for himself. And JUAN Williams, welcome to the Rock Newman Show. Thank you so much for coming.
Well, you built a reputation for yourself. That's why I'm here.
Well, I am actually honored that you are here. JUAN, let's jump in because you are in a very interesting position, let's call it. And that is, you've been someone that has developed a reputation for having a keen sensitivity towards what's going on in the culture, what's going on in the country, and a sensitivity for the underdog. Right. You've developed that reputation. Just recently, you quite vociferously made a comment, and let me kind of get through this here. You said that Al Sharpton and Michael Eric Dyson were hustlers and frauds for criticizing white folks like Bill O'Reilly, and for demonizing white folks like Bill O'Reilly. Now, I recently saw an interview that you on with Sean Hannity, who I want to talk to you about in a moment. And Leo Terrell was on that show. Now, Leo Terrell, a civil rights attorney, was involved with O.J. Simpson back in the day. Frankly speaking, I much agreed with your position in that debate, much more than I did with Leo's. I mean, I thought Leo Terrell at that point, he was talking about the Trayvon Martin trial, and he was talking about the evidence, what the jurors had to go on the evidence, and he was telling everybody, you didn't know what the hell you were talking about, but he called you. He said you were just like Al Sharpton and Michael Eric Dyson. You called Michael Eric Dyson and Al Sharpton hustlers and frauds. How do we reconcile all of that?
So much. But I would start by saying that, you know, my feeling about the Zimmerman-Martin case was that the jury may not have had enough evidence to prosecute, but in my mind, a jury is not there simply to look at the technicalities. They had to have a sense of the community standards and what justice would amount to, especially when you have a dead child and grieving parents.
And Leo, as a lawyer, he was trying to just eliminate all of that.
Yeah, he said,
what the evidence, only the evidence they had.
And I appreciate the perspective, but I mean, if you just wanted to have a jury of legal experts and lawyers who would say, what is the evidence? But you know what? I think that the prosecution may have made a mistake. Maybe they should have brought a charge of first-degree murder instead of second degree, or maybe the third degree, I don't know, or manslaughter, or a weapons charge. Yeah. I don't know.
A lesser charge to make it more likely that they could prove that.
Something else. Right. They needed something else because, to my mind, allowing Zimmerman to walk free and even returning the gun to him was, to me, an injustice and wrong. That's the way I felt. And that's what I said. Terrell's position was that by saying that, I was somehow ignoring the laws and feeding the fires or something like that of anger in the black community. So that, I guess that explains my position there. Now, with regard to Sharpton and Dyson, what happened here was in the aftermath of this, you get people like Bill O'Reilly, who I work with at Fox, saying, hey, you know what, there's some larger problems inside the black community having to do with out-of-wedlock birth. That's Bill O'Reilly's big thing. But if you extend that into high dropout rates, achievement gaps in schools, high incarceration rates, high poverty rates, high unemployment rates, we could go on. You know about these problems inside the community. So that then sparked people who said, oh, Bill O'Reilly and the white conservatives in Fox News are trying to distract from anger over the Zimmerman-Martin verdict. And which I thought, well, that's interesting, because we've had these ongoing problems in our community way before the tragedy of what happened with Trayvon Martin in Florida. And the question is, how do we deal with it? Now, you may not be aware of this, Rock, but I wrote a book now 5 years ago called Enough. And the subtitle of the book is Phony Leaders, Dead-End Movements, and Culture of Failure That's Undermining Black America and What We Can Do About It. And in that book, I hit hard at people like Sharpton. And the book actually focuses on Bill Cosby, the comedian, probably someone you know well. And Cosby had come out some time ago on the 50th anniversary of Brown and said, you know what, we got problems in this community, and why is it that we're having a celebration of Brown when we got kids who don't even know what Brown is about and don't appreciate education, want to tell you that if you go to school and you excel, you're acting white. Why aren't we talking about what's going on in our community? Well, Cosby got criticized, and who was the ace #1 critic of Bill Cosby? Michael Eric Dyson. What did Dyson say? This is evidence of the black middle class being ashamed of poor black people and don't feel comfortable with the way white people react when they see poor black people on the street or in distress.
Okay. You know what? I don't think that anyone could for 1 second argue with anything that you just said there. It seems to me and I don't need to defend Sharpton or Michael Eric Dyson. My God, they do that very well.
And they're great speakers.
They speak very well for themselves. But it seems as if what happened, first of all, I think there is a palpable feeling, if not understanding, that a Bill O'Reilly or Sean Hannity really doesn't give a damn about what's happening in the black community.
No, I wouldn't say that.
Well,
but I would say that that perception exists.
Yeah.
And I would say that they largely are voices for a conservative point of view in terms of American politics. I don't know that that means that they don't give a hoot, but what I would say is their audiences,
don't give a hoot.
But no, their audiences are conservatives.
Right.
And so their prescriptions, their attitude towards so many of the issues that we talk about, you were just having an intense conversation with Councilman Orange about minimum wage laws.
Sure.
They would say minimum wage laws act to depress job markets for low-skilled workers. That's not what you heard from Vincent Orange. That's not what you'd hear from most people in the black community. That's different than saying they don't give a hoot.
Well, as their body of work has been presented for a very long time,
right.
I would submit that the impression that most people who are in the quote-unquote victim position, minority community or otherwise,
right.
You look at their body of work over a period of time, and they've just thrown bricks, they've thrown rocks, and they appear all the time not to give a damn. And that kick somebody when they're down. I just don't see, here's one of the questions I would ask you.
Well, let's stay with that.
Let me finish that point. Let me finish that point, though, for a second. I watch a Sean Hannity, and I see him talk about the Trayvon Martin trial. Mm-hmm. And what's his crash and bang and MMA style that Trayvon Martin had this guy down, and over and over and over he repeats that, right?
Right.
Okay. I want to just surmise for a second. Let's flip the script. Let's say that a young, skinny, 17-year-old, blonde, blue-eyed kid was walking through the community, and a 26, 27-year-old black guy got out of a car with a gun and went and attacked went and confronted this kid. They got in a fight, and then the black man shot this white, blue-eyed guy. How do you think Bill O'Reilly and Sean Hannity would have responded to that? You think their response would have been a whole lot different?
I don't know, but I mean, obviously you sound like me arguing with them. And you sound like me arguing with Leo Terrell. We kicked off this conversation about. But the point is, to me, we can argue the Martin case, and I agree with you on this. I think that there's racial profiling involved. I think there's racial differential in the administration of justice. This is what I was saying about that case. That's my feeling. But that, to me, does not distract. You talk about body of work, and we can get back to that in a minute. But
sure.
That does not take away from ongoing big issues in our community.
Yeah,
and when you get civil rights leaders who will say, you know what, all I want to talk about is Martin and the death of that child.
Right.
And I'm not going to allow people to address these ongoing major issues like, you know, we're sitting here in Washington, D.C. We know about violence. We know about gunfire. We know about Chicago and the record amount of carnage on the streets every day. And that's black on black. There's no white people involved. And it seems to me intentional blindness when you say, let's focus on the white conservatives or Bill O'Reilly or Sean Hannity, and let's ignore it. We don't want to talk about what would require moral courage, Rock, moral courage to speak to each other in very demanding, concrete ways about issues we need to resolve.
Do you think it is fair, again, going back to Sharpton and Dyson, do you think it is fair to characterize them as only having an interest in talking about the Trayvon Martin case, that they don't have a body of work of trying to eradicate some of the problems that exist that we're talking about?
Look, I have respect for Sharpton, but I must tell you, if you want to talk about body of work, we can go down a deep and dark hole. I mean, Tawana Brawley and lots of other things that people would bring up as points of intense criticism of his body of work. And when you want to talk about body of work, I don't know where we would go. Dyson's an academic. He's a writer, very capable speaker. But in terms of helping people, I don't know what organized efforts he's put forward. So if you want to talk about body of work, here, my point is, if you care about our community, if you're about helping people, especially people who are disadvantaged and especially young people in need of education and opportunity, getting a first step on that ladder of upward mobility so they can make it in this country, I think you've got to be about helping them get a better education, making sure they have adequate housing, making sure they've got the support networks if the family isn't there, talking honestly with people about the damage that comes from broken families and out of wedlock birth, talking about violence and what damage comes from involvement with the criminal justice system in this country, but not talking about it in a way that says you're a victim and you can't help yourself and it's just the man in the system and it's Bill O'Reilly. This is foolishness to me. This is a distraction from the real business of our generation. We are honored to be the children of the civil rights generation. We should be about the movement of today, which is improving our community.
As you've been an observer again for a very long time of all that, really all that goes on. You've written about it. You've talked about it. You've been a commentator.
Well, let me just put a plug in and say I wrote Eyes on the Prize, and we have, by the way, an anniversary edition of that book coming out, 50th March in Washington and all that.
That's quite okay.
That's quite okay.
As a promoter, I understand.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And then, I wrote a biography of Thurgood Marshall, and I've written books about historically black colleges, about black religion in America.
How do you respond to people who are frustrated with a JUAN Williams working at Fox and said the only way you could possibly continue to be employed at Fox is that you had to sell out, you had to sell out. Now, people are saying that about Sharpton at MSNBC. The only way Sharpton can keep his job, Sharpton is not being true to the cause because now he sits down with Obama, he has access to Obama, so he no longer is as critical of Obama as he should be. Now, there may have been some criticisms that I missed, but frankly speaking, when it comes to Sharpton and Obama and some of what seems to me was his past history of criticism and complaints, I haven't seen much lately. So he's been accused of selling out. Would that be fair? Is it in any way fair that a JUAN Williams sells out? The only way you can stay employed at a Fox News is to sell out.
Well, if there was evidence, in other words, if you could say to me, hey, Juan, why'd you say this? Then I'd say, okay, well, let me explain it, but I don't even know what it is to explain. We just had a discussion about my differences with so many of the leading personalities at Fox about the Martin Zimmerman verdict. So I'm there stating my point of view very forcefully, and it's not the case anybody's telling me what to say or what I can't say, because I say it.
Which is part of the reason why I thought the Leo Terrell exchange was quite extraordinary.
Well, I'm just telling you. That's not extraordinary. You can watch any day of the week on Fox, and you can see the role I play.
Well, I'm actually talking more so about it almost... It almost seemed as if Leo Terrell might have been auditioning that particular day because he was so vociferous, and he got to talking about Melissa Harris Perry and no, she's not holding a child and that sort of thing. Again,
what was that?
here's what he said that day, that these black commentators like Melissa Harris Perry says that now they're holding their children tighter. And then he said, no, they're not. And I frankly thought that, that was insensitive, like it was insensitive for the blogger who came on Fox and said that Trayvon Martin's mother was using him only for employment, didn't care about him in the past.
What? I never heard. Anyway, I didn't hear that.
Yeah. So part of the question, and some of the, when I announced that you were coming on, one of the questions that I got was, ask Juan if he feels that he has any particular restrictions, that Fox News is clearly speaks to a conservative population.
Right.
And their storylines are skewered to edify and satisfy those viewers. And in that context, do you feel any particular pressure to fall in line with that?
No. In fact, remember who you're talking to. I got fired by NPR because they didn't like things that I said. So I know what it means to have editorial control over your comments, your writings, your thinking. And one of the oddities of my life, of my existence, Rock, is I go to Fox and there's no constraint. I mean, in a way, you could say they don't care what you say because you're not one of them. And the idea is you come in and you stir the pot and they argue with you and I'm a foil and all the rest. But I'm able to do my job, to be a journalist, to give you my thoughts freely, without constraint. So I guess that, it comes at something of a cost. There's certain things I will never be able to do, given that we have a strong conservative audience.
Yeah. What this means is you're going to have to come back here again, because we got a lot more to talk about.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you, Ron Williams. Up next, Mayor for Life, City Council member from Ward 8, Marion S. Barry. Back in a moment.
Rock Newman Show. It's the Rock Newman Show. Rock Newman Show.